Welcome to the Budcast, episode 2, where we discuss smart solutions to dumb problems and dumb solutions to problems that no one has. Disclaimer: we don't claim to understand anything that we discuss here. We are not experts by any stretch of the imagination, and our opinions are not facts. With that being said, Ted, how we doing today?
Pretty good, bud. How are you? Man?
Oh, we're getting there, I suppose. Just got done with the virtual career fair and got out of my suit, which, by the way, virtual career fairs and like any like virtual interviews, like, don't wear pants.
Yeah.
You feel so much more free. Like,
Yeah.
they're not going to ask you to stand up as long as you don't have to stand up and walk away from your computer and show your derriere.
Yeah.
Like,
You don't get a job if you're not in also suit pants.
dude,
Yeah.
it makes it so much easier to talk comfortably when, like, you have the knowledge that it might sound weird, but when you have the knowledge that you're just chilling, like, with the suit top, like, all professional up here, and then you just, like, athletic shorts and, like, a torn up sock on one foot because the other one got ripped off by the dog or something. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, just super relaxing.
I feel like there's a weird power imbalance too. You're just like that whole freeing. It's like, I'm in charge now. I wear what I want to wear, and it's kind of cool.
Look at me. I am the captain now. So what are you drinking today?
So I have a sour ale from New Trail. They're up in Pennsylvania, but it's called Heliocentric. It's sherbet sour, so you get the flavors of like a rainbow sherbet in a sour beer.
I like the first part of that. Unfortunately, I'm not a huge fan of a sour drink. I try to like them. I don't hate them, but they're not my choice.
So I think there's like a balance where like it's like refreshing on a hot day kind of thing, like a mildly tart lemonade, but you can definitely go too sour.
Okay.
And like I'm not a person that can drink multiple of them in a day. Like if I start with a sour, that is my sour for the day. I am you can't catch me having another one. Like, give me a real beer.
Fair
next.
Enough. It's funny that you actually mentioned that. With my friends, we actually used to sit down and we'd go like to Wegmans and get like a pick your own 6-pack. Like, it's not
Right.
knock your socks off amazing beer, but it's not bad.
You get better
And
choices than buying a full case too.
Frequently we would go out and we'd sit down, and generally it's during the winter, and we'd sip on a beer, and they would ask me like, all right, buddy, what's this? What kind of beer is this? Like, what's the scenario? And my favorite beer, and I'll never forget that beer. It's Old Man Winter by the Southern Tier Brewing Company. It's a stout, and that is my beer. That's my beer. I love it. And I would describe that beer much opposite of what you would say, like with a sour being like a hot summer day kind of a refreshing drink, like a stout. Like, that Old Man Winter is, you crack it open, you're sitting like maybe on the edge of a forest looking out over a snow-covered field, like the sun's just going down. Yep. There's a gentle breeze. You can hear cars off in the way distant, like they're like coming down like the highway, because I don't live near a highway. We have the highway of Western New York, but like you can hear the cars in the background. Maybe there's a fire crackling next to you, and you crack open this beer and you sit there, you sip it, and that is where that beer is meant to be drank. Like, wintry landscape, super peaceful, super calm, sip, enjoy the beer.
My favorite part about a stout too is like that if you've like Old Man Winter's
yeah. I didn't mention my beer. I felt that I got Budweiser on backup.
Old Man Winter's a pretty solid stout. Like, it's nothing to write home about, but it's still pretty good.
No, yeah, like it's not my absolute favorite, but it's definitely my favorite to drink most frequently.
If I call that like my baseline, like the bottom tier of this quality stout that I'm about to explain, okay? Not all stouts. Like, I've certainly had things that are worse and repeatedly have things that are not as good. But if that's the bottom level, right? If you sit and you let that beer, your fridge is kept at like 38 degrees, right? Most households, it's between like 36 and 40, right? If you let that beer warm up to like 50, 55 degrees, the flavor profile just opens up. Like, it's a whole new beer at 36 degrees that your fridge is, and like 50, 55. You just get a whole new flavor profile that it's...
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, let your stouts warm up, bud. Trust.
Good to know.
Yeah, I'm with you. Definitely cold weather beers.
All right, well, we could discuss beers all day. I know you could discuss beers all day long. I could sit here and enjoy you discussing beers all day long, but I have something else that's burning in the back of my brain, and I actually showed this to Ted, and it has to deal with baseballs. Specifically, baseballs doing things that baseballs shouldn't be doing, like traveling at the speed of sound.
Yeah.
So, to kind of give a bit of background to it, I wouldn't even say background, more so like what we're going to discuss is there's this guy who you should go check him out. We're going to have some links to his videos that we're referencing in the description of this video. Smarter Every Day. Great guy. His name's Dustin. He does tons. I've watched a lot of his content. He does all sorts of like really cool experiments and then applies the math to them to kind of give a basic understanding of how things are working and why they work the way they work. Really cool if you're interested in that kind of stuff. He makes it super easy to understand too. So it's not like you're walking into like your 7th semester engineering lecture hall and they write on the board that you need to roast, grind, and brew 3 gallons of coffee for a customer and that's your project for the semester. Good luck. And they walk out of the room. Totally didn't happen to me. That happened in 3rd semester. All right. That happened in 3rd semester. Anyways, really cool dude. So he's also, from his videos at least, I've never met him.
He also does this really cool thing that he's taking like all of these things to the extreme. So it's not like watching John Brinkus on Sports Science on your 4-minute clip on Sports Center about just like how hard he has to torque his arm to throw this baseball. Like he literally makes a baseball go the fucking speed of sound. It's nuts.
Yeah, so the start of these videos is with a spinning baseball bat. I don't remember the exact drive for it. I think it was to beat the world's longest home run.
Yep.
And so to accomplish this, he builds a plywood box that's got a motor and some pulleys in it. And there's 2 bats bolted, I can imagine. I think I haven't seen the video in a short minute, but he's got these bats attached to a swing arm and it just spins and it spins and then it spins and it speeds up. And then they used a pitching machine to throw baseballs at this bat that's spinning at, what was it, 250?
250 miles an hour.
They're spinning these bats at 250 miles an hour. And they're throwing baseballs at, I think, like 60 miles an hour into this pitch from a pitching machine into these bats. And it's just, that's like the chaotic stuff that I want to do. The only difference is that they're doing calculations for that stuff using like slow-mo cameras too. So you get to see like the rebound and the squish zone of the baseball, like when it impacts and deforms and then reforms. And he actually discusses that that's part of the ability for a baseball or a golf ball for that matter to get launched. Like it squishes, it elastically deforms, and then it wants to go back to its original shape suddenly, almost explosively, and that's what propels the ball away from the bat. But yeah, like they got slow-mo on that shit, and oh my god, dude, it's so cool. What did you think of it?
I thought it was really neat, and like I think the best part is that it is horribly, horribly impractical. You know,
how so?
So I'm a numbers guy, not to the same extent that you're a numbers guy, right? But like I do love seeing the numbers behind things and knowing the specific like calculations of how much better this thing is than that thing, right? Mm-hmm. So baseball over the past few years has developed into like a league where like math wins. So if this dude hits it to the left side of the field 85% of the time and you stack your infield to the left, sure, there's a gaping hole on the right, but like the math says this is where he hits the ball, that's where you should play against him, right? And so one of the major stats that they've started like tracking for these long distance home runs is like the bat speed and the launch velocity of the baseball, like how fast the baseball is actually moving as it comes off the bat, to decide like how efficient a home run it was or how close he got to not getting it or hitting it as far as he did or whatever it was, you know?
Well, now that we have cameras that are capable of collecting that data.
Yeah, I mean, like even, there were primitive ways to do it before where you could like, track where the ball crossed the plate or made contact with the bat anyway, how fast it got to somewhere else, and you could average out its speed. So like there were ways to do it beforehand, but like seeing now that they're taking all of these like advanced metrics in baseball and just fucking blowing it up and just making a helicopter out of a wooden baseball bat and a plywood box and just smashing a baseball for 700 feet is just like, it's just like, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take the things that we know break a whole bunch of records that definitely aren't broken because we didn't have a human being doing it, and then calculate the numbers as to why the people you grew up admiring suck.
So, yeah, I don't think we mentioned, but he managed a 717-foot home run with these baseball bats, just two baseball bats spinning on some motor.
Propeller. Yep.
It sounds like a helicopter winding. It
looks
really does.
like a helicopter.
And the reason it sounds like a helicopter is because it's breaking the wind and creating turbulent flows, and therefore it's chopping the wind. So if you were to take like a desktop fan, like in your computer, there are so many fins there that the volume that each one of those fins would scoop is small enough that you can create low turbulent or laminar flow with a desktop fan, which is why they don't sound choppy. If you were to take those same fans and spin the same rate with the same fins, but removed half of them, they would sound choppy because the volume of air that they're trying to move is too much and it becomes turbulent. At least as far as my understanding goes. I'm quite positive that's how that works. Anyway, so these bats, like they sound choppy like fucking helicopter blades because there's only two of them and they're just cutting through the air. So we could get those spinning even faster without applying additional motor force.
How?
If you were to take and modify the bat so that only the part of the bat that's going to come in contact with the ball is circular. Cylindrical? Circular.
Cylindrical, yeah.
Yeah, cylindrical. Yeah. And you were to modify the rest of the bat to be aerodynamic, I don't know, like slam maybe some sheet metal at like points like around the bat. Like if you've got like if this is your bat. If this is your bat, you put like a fin on the front of it and a fin on the back of it that would cut the wind and make an easier flow, kind of like an airfoil on like a glider, which are, by the way, curved on the top, generally flat on the bottom, or bellowed on the bottom even. And the reason flight is generated is a difference in the pressures generated and the time traveled for that air. But anyways, that's a fluid mechanics problem. And I took fluid mechanics 2 semesters ago. I don't remember everything. But if you were to do that with those bats to reduce air drag, you could get those moving significantly faster on the same amount of, like, the same setup.
Interesting.
I wonder how much that would impact the distance the ball would fly. What do you think?
So, you know, it was pretty standard, not even taking advanced metrics into account, right? The whole thing was like, bat moves faster, ball moves faster. Like it just seems pretty simple. You know what I mean?
Immovable force, unstoppable object. I got those reversed, but you get what I'm saying.
The part that like makes me have questions about like how fast the bat is moving, right, is the way in which you swing a baseball bat, right? So if I back up here just a little bit, right? So the whole thing is when you swing a baseball bat, right, your hands are supposed to come forward first, but the bat still stays like generally in the same position, and your wrists aren't supposed to break, and the bat's not supposed to come around until like after you've made contact, right? So the fact that the bat is dragging behind you, like, I don't know the physics behind it, but it essentially drags more force through the zone, and you end up hitting the ball harder. So my thought is like,
I can explain that in a second.
You know how like in a weed whacker, right, where like the string isn't firmly out, right? It like drags behind, and that's how it ends up slicing. I'm wondering if not necessarily increasing bat speed with the propeller, but like allowing the bat to drag from behind it on like a swivel system, right? If that wouldn't also increase the distance that the ball traveled.
So you mean like if you were to put like a rack and pinion, not a rack and pinion, that's a gear setup. If you were to put like a pin and allow the bat to like swivel back and forth,
right? Where if the propeller isn't moving, right, you can shift the bat like left and right.
Yeah,
it stays pivoted where the handle would still stay in the same place, but the bat head can rotate, right?
Yeah, it could pivot like 180 degrees or whatever.
Right. If you swung the propeller then, or if you started the motor then, right, and the bat's dragging through the zone, I wonder if you don't make better contact with it and end up hitting it forward, just the way I know to swing a baseball bat manually rather than as a helicopter.
I don't think that would work, and that's based on your previous statement of why when you swing, your bat stays behind you, and then you break your wrists at the end. When you do that, you're taking you're putting, so like if you've ever been on like a, I don't know, like a spinny chair, you can do it right now in your spinny chair. Like you hold your arms out and you spin and you go really, really slow. And you don't do anything more than bring your arms into yourself and then you start spinning faster.
Sure.
So if you can take that bat and keep it close to the center of rotation, which is you. So if you keep that bat close to you when you're rotating, you're imparting the same amount of speed that you have into the bat. And then when you flick and break your wrists, you're flinging your arms out in that chair suddenly. So you're going to slow down in your chair, but it's going to require more force to stop the bat, which is why I don't think having a swivel system would work. Because it's not going to change how the bat does. It's not going to change anything about the bat except for when it makes contact. And then when it makes contact, the rigid inertia that a bat has is going to not be there, and it's not going to be able to put as much force into that ball. Because if you, like, I don't know, a wet noodle, like you spin a wet noodle around really, really fast, and then you put your finger up, and it's going to wrap around your finger, sure, but it's going to come to a dead stop. Whereas if you were to take a raw piece of spaghetti and swing it at your finger, you're going to feel more force in your finger because it's rigid. And the force of your hand is going to also impart on your finger with the raw spaghetti than it would be only the force of the soft spaghetti flying around and slamming in your finger. Like you lose a lot of potential energy there if you're going to put that bat on a swivel, I think.
Interesting. I'd be interested to know, like, I guess the way that the physics of the bat spinning work differently than like I've played baseball before and know how you're supposed to manually swing a bat. Right.
You don't just walk
you don't just like all arms and just yank your arm out. Yeah, like obviously
like the Beyblade, man. Like you walk up and you just start spinning like with your bat out.
Yeah, obviously they don't work the same, but like the mechanics of swinging a bat functionally in a baseball game appear a whole lot different to me than like make the bats a helicopter and then do it again. You know what I mean? Like the whole so it's different enough in my mind that like I'd be interested to know how it works and see it in a practical application.
Fair enough. I mean, like if I had a setup like that, you can bet your bottom dollar I'd go out and test it right fucking now, but I don't. Yeah. And even if I did, I don't have the space to test it. The dude launched a baseball 717 feet. Like, fuck, dude.
I'm more surprised than anything else, to be honest, that baseball stayed intact to fly 700 feet.
I'm not. Baseballs are incredibly durable, dude.
If you've ever ripped open a baseball, man, they're cheap rawhide, cheap string, and a bunch of like hundreds of feet of yarn. Like the materials themselves. I'm
pretty sure it's leather.
It's yarn.
Like it's leather string. Is it?
It's yarn.
It's got a cork center, if I recall.
A cork or a rubber ball, usually, depending on who makes the baseball. But yeah, like it's hundreds of feet of twine and then hundreds of feet of yarn, and that's a baseball. Like sure. The materials themselves, they're so packed in tightly, but like as we saw from this guy's other video, you know what I mean? Like they can blow up, bud. That the baseballs can just explode.
I know they can explode. So with that being said, the other video with baseballs, because like I could spin up baseball bats and hurl rocks at them all day long. Like I did that with my bike. I would flip it upside down and spin up the back tire in 5th gear, and I would drop rocks onto it, and the rocks would launch. Like, and they were violent too, man. Like they would hit, and you hear them go, like, and they would just go. But, smarter every day. Dustin, he actually got, I think, together with 2 or 3 of his other like friends that were also in the mechanical engineering like fields, and they created an air cannon that would launch a baseball at Mach 1.
Yeah, the ball was moving over 1,000 miles an hour. It literally, I think it was 1,050. They fired it like, I don't know, 100 feet, 150 feet at like a steel plate, and
maybe
in slow motion, this ball exploded. Like all the pieces,
like an inch thick piece of steel.
You couldn't even pretend that used to be a baseball. There was nothing left.
It liquefied.
In
the slow mo, they show you like the ball just melts. and then turns into like just splintered what looks like cobwebs.
So the part that like got to me the most, outside of just how cool it was to watch a baseball explode without an explosive, right, was again like going back to these like sabermetrics, right, and taking all these advanced stats, right, in the major leagues, right, the pitching rubber is 60 feet and 6 inches away from the front of home plate. The batter.
That's an oddly specific measurement.
So it's based on the fact that the bases are 90 feet apart, right? And that's your middle ground.
It's the center?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 60 feet, 6 inches from the front of the plate. And it's partially, too, because the home plate sits, like, in front of the foul lines, so it's not, like, a perfect square with where the bases sit in the line. All that aside.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Geometry.
Yeah. Numbers! Oh. But, so, 60 feet, 6 inches away, and if that pitcher throws you a 100-mile-an-hour fastball in a major league game, right, you have 0.3 seconds as a batter from release to when it hits the catcher's glove. Like, you have to have, like, your swing basically has to be partially in progress to be able to get around on the ball to be able to hit it. Even if it goes 3 inches in front of the plate, you still have to react in an inhuman amount of time.
Yeah,
right?
Let me just derail for a second. Like, yeah, that reaction time, like,
yeah,
that was almost like Tim the Tool Man. Anyways, not intentional.
Yeah,
but like just the amount of you have to have already committed to your swing by the time the pitcher lets go of that ball. Mm-hmm. If you have any chance of swinging, so you need to be able to, and this is why the human brain is so freaking amazing. Not because we put men on the moon or are creating microstructures that we can implant in people's hearts to artificially pump the heart after the heart decides to stop pumping. Our human, like the brain, is capable of reading the movements from the pitcher, and the exact moment that the pitcher releases the ball, mm-hmm. our brains are mostly capable of determining where that ball is going to go. And whether you should swing or not.
As far as baseball is concerned too, like, you can make a baseball move. Like,
yeah,
you can throw a straight fastball, but then there's curveballs and sliders and screwballs and sinkers and you can make that ball move in one of infinitely many patterns. All right, and like, so the fact that you can decide not only whether or not to swing, but to swing efficiently and hit it, and know where the ball is going to move to by the time you have to hit it, instead of just assuming it's going straight. You have 0.3 of a second. It's absolutely insane. All right.
Yeah.
But we decided to take those numbers, right? And then Bud and I started playing with calculators, and we decided that if a ball is literally moving 1,050 feet at a constant speed, right? Because that makes our lives way easier, right? The batter, in order to get those same 0.3 seconds, right? You have to be more than a mile away from that cannon releasing that baseball. In that 0.3 seconds, it was 0.3 seconds and a baseball moving 1,050 miles an hour. But, so I forget the exact calculation we had while Bud figures it out. Let me,
Yeah, how many, dumb question, how many feet are in a mile?
5,280.
Maybe I'm dumb then. I don't remember I lost the paper with the original calculations on it.
We might have just also said it out loud. I don't even remember if you were writing it down. But
I calculated it. I'll tell you that much.
He calculated it, and it was just over a mile that this cannon would need to be from the front edge of the cannon to home plate to be able to hit it. We then took it kind of conservatively, right? Because if a car's moving 100 miles an hour, like you're standing still on the sidewalk and a car goes by you at 100, you're going to be able to tell it's a car, right? If a car goes by you at 1,000 miles an hour, it is maybe a blur of color. You cannot identify that thing as a car. And that's the size of a car, let alone a baseball, right? So we decided to take this more conservatively, and we're like, all right, let's round it up to half a second instead of 0.3 of a second. And even if you have half a second from release to when it crosses the plate, moving that fast as they launch that baseball, you still need to be 3/4 of a mile away to be able to even pretend to have a chance to put a bat on that ball. The time, like the time that a batter can typically react, and the speed at which that baseball moves, literally, like, that's nuts. That's nuts.
Yeah, no, that's absurd. Like, if you have 0.5 seconds to respond, it was like what? Still like half a mile, you mentioned?
It was still like three quarters of a mile. I think it was like 0.74 miles. Remembering roughly, those numbers could be wrong, but like...
Yeah. Like, that's just dumb. That's amazing.
Yeah. Not only is the distance insane, but like, imagine having to find that ball, track it, and hit it. Like, it's hard enough to hit when that ball's moving 100 miles an hour. To find it, see where it's going, and swing at that location, right? This cannon, I would assume, moving that fast, it's pretty hard to make that ball variable as far as like whether it's going up, down, left, or right, or some combination of all of them. So I imagine it hits a pretty stagnant spot. You know what I mean? The same way that you can go to the batting cages.
If you survive. If you even manage to get the bat on the ball, you have broken bones.
That bat's gonna shatter before your bones do, right?
Actually, I don't know the time at which. I mean, yeah, the bat's gonna shatter before your bones do, but how soon after the bat shatters will you break your wrists?
Yeah, if the bat goes, I think your wrists are okay, right? Because you're swinging through, the bat breaks, it goes behind you. You're gonna feel sore.
Did you full commit and you're death gripping this bat?
Oh, you don't death grip a bat when you full commit. Loose hands, quick bat. Loose hands, quick bat. You know what?
I'm not a baseball guy, all right?
So I got you. It's what I'm here for, Budward.
I can crunch numbers.
But so like theoretically, if the bat breaks behind you, right? Like, or in front of you, whatever it is, as you're in the swinging process of this bat, that bat's going to shatter. There's no way that bat survives. I've seen bats break on way less, right? I have to imagine that swinging through, your wrists are going to be okay. You're going to be sore. You're going to feel it. You know what I mean? You're going to notice when that bat gets shattered. But I don't know if you break any bones.
I think you break bones. So, follow me on this. You know that shock that you get when you don't hit the ball in the sweet spot? Like you tip it? Mm-hmm. Like you hit the baseball? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, no, that shock runs all the way up through your arms and it fucking hurts.
Sure.
And you're not about that life. If you hit this ball at the tip of the bat, I don't care who you are.
Oh, if it's the tip of the bat, your arms are broken.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. But
even if I shouldn't shout, I think it was overloading the mic in the last episode. But like, even if you still hit, like if you hit the ball in the sweet spot and the bat shatters. First of all, we're not assuming that any of that shrapnel is gonna go into you. By the way, like if it's a proper wooden bat, like a bat's dust, like shattered, ruined, destroyed. If it's metal, probably bent in half.
I've seen metal bats break in games too. So like you don't even need to be throwing 100 miles. Like if you hit it the right way, you can still break a metal bat.
The thing here is that when you break a bat, generally the point at which the bat breaks will separate a lot of the energy a lot of the ability for the energy to be transferred to you is lost in that break.
Right.
So like you end up swinging like this stub of a bat and the bat goes flying somewhere else. Like all the energy that you had and all the energy that could have been imparted to you is flying in that bat towards little Timmy in the crowd.
I hope not. Poor little Timmy.
Dude, you could die. I'm not going to discuss this. That sounds like a Saw problem. Like the Saw movies, like, man, grotesque. Anyways, I can't help but think that even if you hit the ball in the right spot and you didn't send a massive shockwave down your arm, like, you're still gonna break something. You have to. You're holding a thing that's shattered. Shattered.
Have you ever, like, all right. So the way I'm equating this in my head, right, is like taking a guitar, pulling it over your head, smashing it on the floor in front of you, right?
Yeah.
When it hits the ground, you're gonna know it, right? Like you can still feel it in your arms.
Yeah. Have you
but your arms
a guitar?
Maybe.
Oh no.
But you're gonna know it. Yeah, like you can still feel it in your hands as it makes contact. Like the same way you could feel it even if you hit a baseball moving 60 miles an hour. Your hands would at some point still feel contact with something, right?
Yeah.
When that thing shatters and your arms get to follow through, it makes it a whole lot more comfortable than if you were to hit it and then it didn't break. Like a lot of that shock when you hit the ball off the end of the bat, right? Is it reverberating wrong because the bat doesn't get the follow through?
Which
right?
has to do with natural frequencies, by the way, which I'm learning about right now. Fucking sucks. We're using a center of percussion apparatus to calculate the waveform that it generates. It's cool, but
but if you get to follow through on it, right? If
sure.
this, I'm going to assume that the bat shatters pretty instantaneously. Like there's not a whole lot of time between when that ball makes contact with the bat.
If the bat were to shatter immediately, then yeah, I don't think you'd certainly feel it.
You'd feel it.
Bones.
You'd know it. But yeah, but I don't know if that has the power to break your arms even moving that speed. If you hit it off the end of the bat or off the handle, dude, both your arms are broken. You might as well saw them off, dude. Fucking forget it.
So then let's assume a really strong bat. Like still like a standard, like it's not like a titanium reinforced bat, which I'm sure you could probably actually buy.
Almost definitely.
But let's assume that it's a major league accepted baseball bat and it's metal.
Okay, well.
Do you have to use, are you not allowed to use metal bats in Major League?
Wood bats.
That's it? Wood bats?
Wood bats.
I wasn't sure. That's why I asked. So I don't know. Let's just assume for the sake of argument that you're using a metal bat, and instead of that bat breaking, it bends.
Oh, yeah, your arms are broken, dude. Your arms are broken.
And that, using that logic, I don't think a wooden bat would shatter immediately. I really don't. I think that it would begin to elastically deform, then plastically deform. Because, like, you got to remember, wood will bend. Like, wood bends.
Right.
And in that very short window that bat is going to bend, you're going to feel every fucking microsecond of it. And that right there, like you're hitting, so basically you're swinging your bat at, I don't know, 250 miles an hour into a concrete wall. That bat's going to plastically deform, but it's not going to break.
Sure.
Right? You're going to feel every fucking second of that the elastic deformation that bat's going to experience.
So I guess
that right there. Go ahead.
I guess in my head, right, if you have a car doing 60 miles an hour, right, and it T-bones a car that is perfectly parked, right?
Yeah.
The car that's parked is going to take more damage than the car doing 60 miles an hour, right? So, if you're swinging
I'll agree for the sake of argument.
I'm not saying that the car moving isn't going to take damage, you know what I mean? Like, obviously it will. Same way that baseball is going to explode once it, gets through the bat, right? Like, that we watched that part happen. I know that part happens.
Yeah, no.
But like, if that car hits the stagnant car, right, or the still car, the car that's still is going to crumple first because of the force of the car that's still moving, right? So my thought is,
not necessarily.
If that baseball, right, is moving that fast, I can't swing a bat 250 miles an hour, right? I'm not putting.
Going to assume that you're holding the bat instead.
Well, you can't break your arms if it's not arms that are holding it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, right. So, if that ball is moving more than 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm swinging a bat as hard as I can, right? That ball is still imparting way, way, way more force than I could ever get with that bat.
Yeah, so basically...
So I have to imagine that the bat shatters first.
No, the bat shatters first. That's what I'm saying. Yes, and then your arms shatter, and here's why. Are you familiar with the plastic and elastic deformation graphs at all?
No.
I didn't figure. So I said that so cocky, like, ha ha ha, you're dumb.
What a jerk.
So yeah, this is where I need to be on the screen. So when something elastically deforms, like a rubber band, it has a really sharp linear spike.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all elastic deformation. And anytime you impart a force on that object in that region, it will always return to its original shape. As soon as you pass that region, you get to what's called plastic deformation, which begins with a curve that goes across this way. And as soon as it hits its peak here, before it starts coming down, that's maximum plastic deformation, and at this point, if you exceed that point, failure will begin to occur until critical failure, which it breaks.
Okay.
So that means that in order for our bat to shatter, it has to travel through its elastic deformation, through its plastic deformation, and to its breaking point. Which means that your arms need to withstand that amount of force before it breaks. And then once it breaks, your arms will be free. But also, I shook up my beer a bit. Slowly foaming like a volcano. So that means that, and I'm not saying that inertia of the bat's not going to come into play here either. The inertia of the bat's going to eat a lot of that, but your hands are still going to absorb all of that plastic. So the area under this graph, like the area under that, is all of the force that your arms are going to experience before the bat plastically, like, critically breaks and shatters. Once it shatters, you'll stop experiencing that force. But up until that point, your arms are getting every second of that. And that's why, even if it's not your arms, just like the weak little tiny bones in your wrists are shattered. Pulverized. Gone.
That makes sense.
To atoms. What's the Thanos quote?
I don't remember.
Reduced to atoms, I think.
That's it. Yeah,
that's what it is.
Reduced to atoms, yeah. But, yeah, I don't want to volunteer to find out myself. But
oh, God, no. Fuck that.
I don't know.
Fuck that.
I don't know. I would just think that the speed at which the bat breaks, I don't know. It's over my head. It's out of my hands, and I'm not volunteering. I'm not doing it.
It is. So, but, and that leads me into, I don't want to dwell on this one too long, because it seems to be a currently developing situation. Oh God, what's the I don't remember the other YouTuber's name. So Dustin from Smarter Every Day partnered, or at least met up with another guy. I think it's Things Made Here.
Yeah, that sounds right.
We'll get a link to that video in the description as well.
Yep.
So you can go and check out both those guys, because they seem really cool. I don't know how much. I don't know a whole lot about the other guy. Things Made Here, I think. I hope I'm getting that right.
I think so.
If I'm not, I'm sorry. But he is trying to beat Dustin's home run record using a baseball bat that has a chunk of it that explodes. Well, I shouldn't say explodes. More so, cartridges will combust, releasing the exhaust gas from these cartridges through a manifold, which pushes, like, if my arm is the bat and my phone is the pusher, it's gonna expand and force a pusher off of the bat, and it'll activate when you come into contact with the ball. And from judging from their video, they don't have any finite numbers yet, but it looked like they were capable of hitting a ball with that device over 600 feet.
Yeah.
I don't think they can confirm, because they couldn't find the ball, because it went into a field they weren't expecting to get to. But I highly recommend going and checking out that video.
Yeah,
it's really cool, and it's kind of like the completion of a series that isn't a series.
It's nice to watch them all in tandem and just go, baseball is cool, look at the stuff we can do. You know what I mean? But yeah,
I mean, who doesn't want to watch a baseball melt against an inch-thick piece of steel? Like, just melt in slow motion.
I think Bud and I
does melt.
I think we watched that video like 16 times in a row and just rewinded for the exploding baseball over and over and over again. It was so good.
But with that being said, where I know baseballs don't exist are inside of, well, I mean, I guess they could exist. Maybe we can't confirm that inside of a Schrodinger's box.
You'd never.
Ted, take it away.
You'd never know. All right.
I love the idea, but I want to see what Ted has to say about Schrodinger's box and or quantum mechanics in general before I chime in on anything, because I am far from an expert in the field of quantum studies. By any stretch of the imagination. I am, like I said, we don't claim to know anything. We are dumb and dumber, where I'm the dumb one and he's the dumber one.
I'll drink to that.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'll drink to that. So, the idea with Schrodinger's box, if you're not familiar, is this guy Schrodinger. That's why it's his box, right? His whole theory was that if you put a cat inside of a box, right, everything about the inside of that box becomes unknown the moment you close it, right? So you can assume that 80 years after you've, closed that box, that the cat inside is dead, right? Pretty safe assumption, it seems. But if you don't open the box, you can't confirm it. You have no idea. There's no proof that anything that you believe to be true inside that box is actually true.
That reminds me of a Futurama episode. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I think so.
Fry, I think, is acting as a police officer, and they get on Tron motorcycles, and they're literally chasing Schrodinger for killing a cat, but he's got the cat in the box, and he's like, you can't prove that he's dead yet. Anyways, I just thought of that.
Which is an awesome thing, because
there's more in that box. Are you familiar with what else is in there?
Not offhand. I've read about it.
But I think what was in that box was a cat, a radioactive isotope, a sensor that would detect when an isotope has decayed, or an atom or whatever it is has decayed, and will then release a small charge which would break a flask of poison. It sounds like a Rube Goldberg machine.
Yeah.
And that would break a flask of poison and then kill the cat. It's not a matter of the cat would just starve or anything. Like, it was actually getting killed.
His specific box, yeah, that would the whole intention was like
more complicated than it needed.
If you open the box, you definitely kill the cat if it's not dead already, right? But the applications to me with Schrodinger's box are absolutely wild to me, right? Like, you can find similarities between Schrodinger's box and the U.S. legal system, right? Where it's innocent until proven guilty. Right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
If you look at like O.J. Simpson's case, right? We can all sit here as adults and be like, "Yo, he did it," right? But the proof wasn't enough. There was a whole bunch of circumstantial stuff, and there was a whole bunch of what ifs, and there's a whole bunch of like, "Hey, it looks like he did it, but we can't say for sure that he definitely 100% did it," and so he didn't do it. The same way that, like, you can assume the cat is dead, and cats only live this long, and it's been this many years, and it didn't have any food, and it doesn't have any water, and like,
so there's absolutely, without any doubt in my mind, that cat is fucking dead.
But you don't have,
man, all 9 lives gone.
But you don't have the proof to be sure of it. You know what I mean? I
know what you mean, and it absolutely upsets me. It pisses me off.
Yes. Schrodinger's box, like the places that you can take that and apply it somewhere else, just like, this guy was a genius, and all he had to do was put a fucking cat in a box. Like.
Wait, I've got a cat downstairs. Can I be a genius if I get it in a box?
No!
I'll be back!
But, like, you can take it and apply it to really smart things. You can take it and apply it to really dumb things. And of course, like, we're going to take it to really dumb things.
What we do.
Yes! Perfect! So, like, you can take it and put it in terms of something as simple as, like, you're in middle school and you don't know if the girl you're into likes you back, right? You can take all of these signs and you can say, I think she does, I think she doesn't, whatever, and you can prove yourself right 1.5 million times over. But if you never ask,
you won't know.
If you never ask, you don't know. You have no idea.
Damn it!
I know.
Think of that's
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm now thinking of like at least 3 applications. At least 3.
Yeah. Schrodinger's box happens all the time. Like, am I gonna get in trouble for doing this thing at work? You don't know if you don't ask. You know what I mean? Like, they're just all of the places that you can just take the you don't know until you know. It's insane. It's mind numbing. It's mind numbing.
The amount of times that I have been told by people who shall remain unnamed to act now and ask for forgiveness later is absurd. Like, oh, you think putting tannerite in a washing machine and shooting it with a 12 gauge is a smart idea? Well, I can't say that it's a bad idea or a good idea, but just know that when you're done, you're going to need to beg for forgiveness.
And what if you didn't?
Wait, does that mean that I shouldn't do it? And then they look at me like, nah, dude, fucking do it. And then they just walk away.
Yeah. Well, and if you never get in trouble for it, you know what I mean? You never get caught and the thing ends up being a complete and total blank. You didn't know until you did it. You didn't know until
so it's a never open box.
Exactly. If you don't open the box, you don't know what's in the box.
Dude, that is both the solution and the creation of anxiety, which in its own right is a fucking paradox.
And it's a Schrodinger's box.
I am upset.
Yeah. It causes.
That bothers me so much.
And the longer you think about it, the worse it gets. The longer you think, the worse it gets. It's so bad. It's so bad. But everything's Schrodinger's box. Everything.
Oh, fuck, dude. That fucks me up.
Yeah.
That fucks me up.
You don't know what's in a black hole until you go there. You can assume it's death, right? You can assume that the changing pressures...
We know spaghettification happens, but we're not...
Do you die? You don't know? Have you done it?
No, we don't know if we die. We don't know if we die. Yeah. But, like, do you know about spaghettification?
I do not.
Do you want to know?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so like when an object, I shouldn't say a human, spaghettification is an actual official term by NASA, I'm quite positive.
Okay.
Like, you punch that into Google. Anyways, the idea of spaghettification is when you cross over into the event horizon of a black hole, which is where the universe no longer exists, supposedly. Like on your journey there,
but
once you pass it, and of course this deals with perspective, which has to do a lot with time travel, which is the perspective of the observer from someone like us looking at a black hole and something that goes into the black hole. Because black holes don't release light, like they absorb light, they bend and absorb light because the gravitational pull is so great. It distorts any images that would enter that hole. And the long and short of it, without trying to be too technical and really hurt the brains of myself and you and anyone who might be watching who isn't necessarily an expert in astrophysics, because we're fucking not, is that it's taking like the image of that person and spreading it out like butter across the event horizon, making it look like someone literally grabbed you by the head and the feet and pulled like a Stretch Armstrong, literally like a Stretch Armstrong. And the anomaly or the action or whatever you want to call it is called spaghettification.
Interesting.
And it has to do with light being bent and released at different time intervals than what is standard to the human eye, because the human eye doesn't necessarily look at things more than it absorbs refracted light in order to create images. And with that being said, I'm going to stop that train of thought because I could go on for 20 years about black holes. I really could, because time is subjective in a black hole. So 20 years is really 2 minutes. Ha ha ha!
I have so many questions.
No, go ahead. What question?
So you said that the basis of spaghettification, right, is the basis of the human eye to see refracted light, correct?
Less, yeah. And that a black hole is going to distort the amount of light that's being refracted. So your eye is going to build an image that is not representative of the object that went in.
Is it possible that other species could, in fact, see things as the image that went in, because it's not the human idea of vision and refracted light?
You have to change.
It's impossible to test. Schrodinger's box. I get it.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to assume that what you're saying is that we've interpreted the laws of physics incorrectly, and that another advanced society would be able to use that, or is that not right? Yes or no? Simply.
I wasn't even taking it that far. I'm thinking like,
okay, cool. So rewind a bit because I want to answer this. This is interesting. So
my question is like, if a housefly interprets light different than we do, all right?
Could the organ that's capable of interpreting the data around it?
The way that our vision works may not necessarily be the same way that other species' vision works, at least to the same extent, right?
Our vision is only capable of seeing the visible light spectrum. So if you were to take, I'm gonna be wrong, but like, I don't know, like a hummingbird, sure. They can see, if I'm not mistaken, the infrared spectrum as well as the visible light spectrum.
I believe that's true.
I could be really wrong. Like I said, we're not experts. We don't claim to know shit. We're just spitballing here. But I'm pretty sure, I know for a fact there are other species that can see like infrared. I just don't know what species they are. And I don't know why hummingbirds come into mind. But anyways, if there was another species intelligent like us, maybe, that would be able to observe a black hole at a safe distance and accurately, and not like the fuzzy image that we managed to take, which by the way was multiple petabytes of data. By the way, scientific feat, if anything. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. Like a picture of a black hole, like holy fuck, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, kudos to whoever worked on that project. It's fucking amazing. I love it. I looked at that image for like, I looked at that image for like 2 days. But if you had a different sensory organ instead of your eye that was capable of detecting other parts of the visible light spectrum, you may be able to see a less distorted image than what the visible light spectrum would have to offer. But I can't say that it would be a perfectly, like, you'd be able to like watch in real time an object undistorted pass into and disappear into a black hole. Like, there's always going to be distortion as far as I'm aware, because black holes eat everything.
But do we know?
We don't know, all right? We can't confirm that. Black holes are Schrodinger, confirmed.
Yeah, everything's Schrodinger's box. Every single thing is Schrodinger's box. I guess I just, like, not even. I get so it's not even about like the spectrums of light that we can see, right? I'm more thinking like if other species didn't see based on refraction of light. You know what? Saying that sentence out loud actually made me realize exactly what you said did in fact answer my question, because everything sees. Well, everything that we know about sees based on refractions of light without using an alternate sense. Okay, that makes sense.
You need to, like, if you could, like, observe the Hawking radiation that's coming out of a black hole, you know, I think, you know, I'm not sure. That's a really complicated topic. I'm not totally familiar with it. It's an interesting topic to discuss by all means. Like, I thoroughly enjoy this. But yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, that's, you know, I'm now my brain's really racing. I gotta give me half a second.
Okay, I don't know if Bud's brain racing is a scary thought or
scary for you, fun for me.
Which definitely makes it scarier.
Well, it would. So if you were to ignore, no, because if you did that, it would.
But I hate to be that guy, but none of this translates well onto a podcast.
Hold on, I'm working on it. I'm compiling data, all right? I'm working on it. All right. Okay.
All right.
I think I have an idea. If you were to have the ability to visibly witness, decipher, and observe every form of the light spectrum,
okay,
and you had the ability to observe the black hole from a safe distance and manipulate your position in time. Now that's the big caveat here. Caveat, fucking I don't know. That's the big determination here. But I would imagine that if you had the ability to control your position in time, you could observe an object falling into a black hole as though it never distorted. So follow me on this. Frame rates.
Okay.
15 FPS versus 300 FPS.
Sure.
15's choppy, 300 smooth as butter.
Smoother than butter.
Do you think that if you were to work... Hold on. Pretty sure they spelled aging wrong on this beer, but we're going to ignore that.
A-G-I-N-G.
Our exclusive Beechwood aging produces a taste, and aging is spelled A-G-I-N-G. Am I just dumb and there's no E in that?
I love that you're taking... Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. A-G-I-N-G is the way to spell aging.
Right.
I love the fact that you're talking about positioning yourself in time, and also you can't spell a 5-letter word.
You leave me alone.
No, that was comedic gold, dude. That was so good.
You know what? If I could even for a fraction of a second hook my brain up to a printer, I'd probably run out of ink in about 3 seconds. And I'm talking like an industrial office printer, man. Like anyways, I would think that if you were to compare
frame rates is where you were at.
To the frame rate, like the ability to observe a frame in time.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming that we have an infinite amount of frames, but you can select any one of them, which would have to do with like the limit as 0 goes to infinity, blah, 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 bullshit, I'm sure. I would think that you'd be able to witness, I don't know how the fuck you'd do it, but I feel like you'd be able to witness a black hole consume objects with the object not distorting. Does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense to me anymore. I lost it. It's got...
So do you mean to say that if like you looked at it frame by frame rather than watching it as a played out event in time, you were watching it like scene by scene?
So the reason that an object distorts in a black hole is because it's obscuring the visual data that leaves the black hole is slowed down and delayed, which is why it creates the distortion. So if you were able to quote unquote meet that time frequency with time manipulation, you'd be able to observe that object enter the black hole undistorted. that makes a lot more sense. I mean, it does.
Okay.
It probably doesn't make any sense logically, but it makes sense to me now, and I think I can portray that now. Does that make sense?
The words that you're saying do make sense, even if we have no basis for fact to knowing that's true.
Yeah, like a great example is if you're playing at 7 frames a second, if you were able to control your inputs to be 7 frames a second, you'd be able to play the game normally.
Sure.
Because
to an outside
let's just
observer
say
who can see that manipulation, yeah.
Time at 60 FPS,
yeah.
and the game is now playing at 7 FPS. We're going faster than the game is, so the game seems slow.
Sure.
If we are able to slow ourselves down to meet the frame rate of that game, the game will now seem normal because it's the perspective of the observer.
That makes a lot of sense.
If a black hole is absorbing something at 300,000 frames a second, and we're advancing through time at 60 frames a second, if we're able to meet that time for which the black hole is absorbing that object, which is what's causing the distortion, because light is being slowed down before it can be released from the black hole again, which is what's causing that distortion. Again, could be wrong there, but I'm going to assume that it is. Then if you can meet that distortion frame rate with your time, so if you were to speed up in time and start experiencing life faster, or the time of the universe, you yourself wouldn't age, I'd imagine, maybe, possibly, I have no idea, but I think then you'd be able to observe the object in that black hole with no distortion.
It makes sense.
Wow, that was... Well, I used all my brain power for the year.
I think it's a good place to wrap it up. And if you don't have any fucking brain power,
my brain hurts, man.
Hopefully, we'll see you next week instead of next decade. Eh?
Yeah. So, just as we're finishing up here, I would just like to say thank you a lot to everyone that watches these. Like, it really does bring a warm feeling to my heart. Like, it really is awesome to be able to see that 54 people watched this episode, and that when we released, or not this episode, but the last episode 1 officially, and then to watch the views on episode 0 also go up, knowing that people enjoyed what we have to offer, it really is very, very satisfying and very warming. And I just want to express my appreciation to everyone who enjoys the content that we're creating and is willing to share, discuss, enjoy, just watch even. And if you do like what we're doing, drop us a like, drop us a comment. Maybe leave us something you want us to discuss. Maybe you have your own 2 bits that you want to drop in on a topic that maybe we discussed. Maybe you're smarter than us. I guarantee you probably are. And you want to leave your 2 bits, do it.
Yeah.
Either way, also, whoa, I forgot. I have bones.
Back to Bud's appreciation. I think it's especially cool that most of the people who have followed up on the YouTube, at least to this extent, have been people who have come from our streams. And I think it's really cool to be able to have a platform to discuss things that aren't watch me play games like I'm Forehead,
that aren't necessarily stream friendly.
If you've watched the whole way through this video, you literally went from us being bad at Dead by Daylight or Minecraft and turned it into watching us talk about black holes. The fact that we can do this on a different medium and about totally different subjects that none of you all signed up for when you hit the follow button on Twitch is really, really cool. So definitely, thank you so much.
Yes, and I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, I'm about tapped out. Just remember, everything in life is Schrodinger's box.
With that being said, I'll drink to that.
Cheers, bud. We'll see y'all next week, I hope.